Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we are back in the Circle of Life to continue on our little mountain page. And we are today going to address all the greens and we're going to do our broccoli trees. We are still going to be using the pencils that we've used for our mountains because down in here we've got these little bits to deal with. So I have got that original set of pencils. As a reminder, I'll just pop them up on the screen for you now in here because that's a good spot to do it. So get those to hand. As before, we are sticking with Polychromos pencils. So the colours we're going to use for the trees are as follows. I will show you the pencil in the sketchbook and again I'll leave them in here for you as well so that you can see. The first one is earth green. Again, I'll just bring this down here. So this is earth green down here, so it's almost like a sagey green colour. And we've also got juniper green, which is this one up here. Permanent green olive, which is more of a sort of yellowish green. Olive green yellowish, which is what I would say is more a traditional olive green. And lastly we have nougat, sort of delicate brown shade here. So that's what we're going to use for our tree selection. In addition to the pencils, I have my Tagawa multi-sharpener, and when I'm using the Polychromos pencils I have it set to a number 5 so it gives quite a long pointy point. I also have my little Derwent eraser because if you remember I have graphite lines where I was leaving out the marks for the shadows just to remind myself, so that's just to take the graphite away, and my little soft brush just for anything that I need to do that for. So we'll see how we go time-wise today. I would like to get this middle section with the trees finished. So in the last video for this, I really enjoyed your comments about broccoli. There seemed to be a lot of chat about broccoli cookbooks. And yeah, that really tickled me. So thank you for indulging me with that. It was good. I enjoyed it. So what I was thinking about with these pencils and these trees, there's quite a lot in the way of long branches and not a lot in the foliage. And because we've got a lot of brown here and we're going to have brown in behind, I wanted to try and do something to sort of differentiate between the trees and the rest of this mountain range because I feel as if they're all going to kind of like squish in together. So the logic behind that is to use the nougat and the olive green yellowish to do the trunks in these branches, and then that gives us the 3 more vibrant green pencils to bring in some of the foliage. Because what we have to remember is the sun is behind us in this picture, so although these are obviously going to be different colours, they are going to be quite dark because the light's been cast behind, and with the volume of trees here and the fact that the mountains are in front of them, I don't suppose that this viewer face inside of these trunks are going to be particularly light. So the idea is I will give you a demonstration on one of the first trees over here. Now the reason as well that I want to do the trees first is it'll help pick out the areas where the mountain is in behind. If I start with the mountain I feel as if I'm going to get a bit lost in there. So that's just something that appeals to me. And you'll notice on all of these tree trunks we've got hatching lines that run vertically, so when we're actually using our pencil strokes we're going to go with that as well just to keep going. So I'm starting with the nougat pencil, which is 178 for those of you that like your pencil numbers rather than the pencil names. And I want to bring some flicky strokes basically up to where the branches start to sort of branch out. There's a surprise. You know what I mean, where they start to splay out. So I'm just going to use that nice sort of light-handed flicky motion that I love so much, like this. And then we can take our olive green yellowish and starting probably about the middle, I'll go back and forth there and bring that in. And we can bring that up our branches as well. Back to the nougat. And start to get some proper colour down here now as well. And then we can layer on top of that with our green pencil here. And start to bring that quite far down. Now we don't want a uniform line here, so vary your strokes, you know, the length of your strokes as you head down into that nougat, and it'll give you a bit more of an interesting feel. And then we can just start to build up the colour. So I'm just switching back and forth here where I feel necessary. And it's up to you to decide on the aesthetics now, the basic techniques there. It's up to you to decide how much green versus the brown colour that you'd like. And I want to keep this fairly rich, again thinking about the light source. We'll get all these little branches filled in a bit better now. Okay, now just to bring a bit of warmth to things here, and a little bit of dimension. I'm going to take the burnt sienna, which was one of the colours from our mountain range, and I want to use that to just warm up these sides a little bit, because there may be some sunlight hitting there, you know, just in certain places through gaps in the trees. So again, just that flicking motion, and I'm just going to flick it in here and there, but I'm going to stick to roughly where the sunlight is coming from, and I'm not going to do it on every branch. I'm just going to pick out spots here and there. And then I'm going to go back in with my nougat and really darken down this bottom part. And then back to my olive green yellowish. Now it's good at this point to keep your pencil quite sharp so that you can get a little bit of those defined lines. Again, this is just for texture more than anything. So there we go, that is our first trunk. Now when it comes to the foliage, this is where we're going to jump to the other pencils. So I'm going to start with my lightest colour, which is the earth green, but this is really just for a bit of highlight. Now again, if you look at the height of the trees here, the sun's going to be hitting that some way or other. So if we just take this pencil, and I'm going to try and pick out, now it's very difficult to decipher which little broccoli poofs belong to which tree, but it doesn't really matter. But if I just pop a light layer of that down on each of these just now. Okay, so we'll assume that that's the first tree. And then we can take our next darkest colour, which is the permanent green olive, and this is going to give us a little bit of vibrancy. So if we think about this as the bulk of the leaves colours, and if we start at the bottom, blend that in with our stalk, and when we get up near the top, if we just leave a little sort of half circle, you know, a little semicircle, on the ones where we think the light might be hitting. So if the light's coming this way, then the lightest patch is going to be on this side. Now it's up to you how much of that you leave, you know, how much of a width of the highlighted colour. That's entirely up to yourself. And I don't think this one down here is going to have any on it, so I'm just going to fill that all in. I love this colour, this permanent green olive. It's one of my favourites. And I don't think this one's going to have any light hitting it. Probably not that one either. So I'm just going to fill these ones in on the right hand side. They are furthest away from the light source, so that would kind of be logical, you know, that would kind of make sense. Maybe this one here is getting a tiny little bit just for fun. So we're just setting ourselves up here for our lights and our darks. So now we need to think about the shadow, and I'm going to use the Juniper Green for that. So that's the last pencil that we've picked out that we haven't used. And again, thinking about the light source, so if the palest part's going to be on the top right, then it follows that the darkest part is going to be, the top left, sorry, the darkest part's going to be on the bottom right. So if I take this one here, for example, and stick this down in here. Now I'm pressing relatively firmly there, I would say that's a medium pressure I'm using. But you can see it's giving you a bit of dimension. And then go back to my mid-tone and bulk that part up as well. And then I can go back over my darkest area down at the bottom here. Like this. So you can see that's much, much richer compared to the others, and that's kind of the aim of the game. So we're just going to go work our way round, as we would say, go round the houses, meaning work your way round, and just fill in. Now you have to make the decision how far up your shadow area is going to come, the same way as you've got to make the decision of how big your highlight is. Again, that's up to you. And I feel like this will be mostly shadow. So in this one, I'm bringing that quite high up, quite a lot of that in there. And then back to my mid-tone. Now with these ones round here, obviously they're going to be a bit darker. So maybe use more of your darkest shade, whichever pencil it is you're using. This one's kind of tucked in here. Oh. The likes of this one, for some reason, seem to think it's really exposed. So when I'm using the Juniper, I'm really just going to stick to this bottom part around here. So I'm keeping that to a minimum. I say every single part doesn't have to be exactly the same. Again, remember, we're working with organic structures here, so there's very rarely anything uniform about them. And then this bottom one here, I feel like there's going to be a lot of the Juniper, the darkest colour. And bring that most of the way up, like that. Okay, so you get the general idea now, that is what we're going for. So in behind here, I can't decide, there's some very distinct trunks in the back here, but the rest of the background's a bit kind of iffy, wishy-washy. So I don't know. I think what I'll do is I'll pick out the defined trunks first, and then we can go from there. So in behind here, I'm just going to take the nougat, and get that down. So that one clearly disappears up in there. And then I can grab my olive green yellowish. And there's one in here as well. There's a skinny one in here. Just let that do its thing in there. Because see, the other thing that's throwing me in this kind of background area, there's tiny little hatch lines and they seem to mimic the ones that are on the tree trunks. Whereas if we head over here, you can clearly see that those hatching is the contour of the mountain because of the direction they're going in, if you look at the ones around here and even in there. So I'm going to leave that just now. If you're ever undecided, if in doubt, do note. And we can always come back to it as well. We're kind of in a strange position here because the light source is coming this way. The light is going to be hitting the back side of these trees in the mountains, and from this angle we don't really know how much of a distance there is between the trees. So when it comes to these trees that are in behind, technically they should be fainter because they're further away from the viewer, but because this light source is coming from behind, they're going to be in shadow. So I'm going to make them darker. So I'm going back to my good old indigo pencil that we used for this shadow here. And the likes of this one that's in behind, I'm just going to run the indigo over that very slightly. So you can still see the other colours poking through, but they're just muted down an awful lot. Okay, so we'll work our way across. I think we'll do all the trunks first. So again, that only involves my nougat pencil and my olive green yellowish. And I'll just get to work on these. Watch my wee deer here. Watch I don't colour his bum in. So I know that a lot of people in a lot of places around the world have been struggling with quite extreme weather. And it's quite serious in places. Canada, I'm looking at you. Belgium, Germany, also looking at you. And I hope that all of you, that if you've been near or involved in that, I hope that you're all safe and you're okay. Here in Scotland, we have what I call very middling weather compared to climates elsewhere. In the grand scheme of things, in the worldwide scheme of things, we do have quite mild winters. It's not uncommon for us to get down to maybe -5 degrees Celsius and, you know, have a bit of snow and stuff. And in the summer, you know, we're maybe like mid-20s Celsius. So in comparison to the rest of the world, our weather's fairly settled. But I have to say the last few weeks, even for us, has been exceptional. There's been a lot of thunderstorms, there's been a lot of water, especially down the likes of London had a bit of flooding. But for us up in Scotland, we're always kind of like, we're in terms of weather, we're like on the fence all the time. And there's been this horrendous bout of hot weather. Now, Scottish people are not built for heat. Like, we are not built for heat. We're not acclimatised to it. And we had a week's worth of temperatures daily where they were up in the mid to high 20s. Basically, most Scottish people melt if it hits 30 degrees. Like, we can't function in it. But the thing that got me was, because we're kind of in the hills, you know, we're quite sort of rural, but we're also quite exposed because of that. And what was upsetting me was the fact that when we woke up in the morning, there was quite a lot of low cloud. And when there's low cloud, obviously that covers us up and you can't see like 2 inches in front of your face. But it normally burns off fairly quickly. And what was happening was, we were getting up in the morning and it was maybe 17 or 18 degrees. And it was like that most of the morning and fairly pleasant. And then at sort of 2 o'clock, it was like someone had opened the pits of Hades and we were jumping from those like late teens up to like mid to late 20s, and it just all of a sudden becomes absolutely unbearable. I'm just going in with my indigo here because this tree's one of the ones in the background, and it's that jump, you know, the sudden jump in temperature on a daily basis that's made it really, really difficult to deal with. So I can only imagine what other places are going through that do have high temperatures. As someone was telling me that it was something stupid, like crazy, like 42 degrees. I can't remember who I was talking to or where it was, but I was just like, 42 degrees, that's not fun for anyone, surely. But well, seeing we're not acclimatised to such temperatures, like we're happy, a good summer for us, you know, warm temperatures like 22, 23 degrees, maybe 24 at a push, that's great, we can still function and we're quite happy. But once it starts to get above that, we really struggle. I did take a flight to, I stopped off at Dubai at one point, and this is a really good example of being Scottish. And when, obviously, you're sitting in an air-conditioned, pressurised cabin for 8 and a bit hours, you know, everything's fine. And we arrived at Dubai airport and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And when the door of the aeroplane opened, it was like opening an oven door. The heat like smacked you in the face. And it was something like 38 degrees Celsius at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I looked at Mr. Jem and I was like, this is not natural. Like, this is not normal. So that was fine. And we were thinking, well, obviously, now that was about September time. So it would have been reasonably cool here in Scotland. By September time, we were down at like maybe 12 or 13 degrees, maybe 16 on a good day. And to go from that to that is absolutely terrifying. But the worst of it was we got on the shuttle to take us to the airport and the heating was on in the bus. Number one, I thought I was going to pass out, but I was stood there and obviously you're all kind of like crammed into and this was pre-pandemic obviously, you're all crammed into this shuttle. I had one of these kind of like long, like tiered gypsy skirts on and I could feel the sweat running down the back, like in behind my knees. It was absolutely awful. And I just thought to myself, what if this is going to be the way of things, I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm just not going to make it. And a lot of it is acclimatisation, I realise that, but there comes a point where, you know, obviously the body has a certain top-end tolerance for temperature. So I think the tolerance for the human body is, I think the extreme, you know, the likelihood of getting heat strokes, more or less 100%, is above 50 degrees, but obviously between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius, if you're moving about and stuff, it is very likely that you're going to get heat stroke anyway. I'm slightly concerned that these temperatures are, you know, these readings are coming more and more off now, and obviously it's due to climate change and one thing and another, but it's one thing being in the heat, it's quite another being in the heat when you're not used to being in the heat. For myself, I mean, I'm very lucky, obviously, I have control of when I work, how long I work, I can stop whenever I want. But there's loads of people that don't have that option, and I've been on at the boys like basically all week saying, have you got sun cream on, put a hat on, make sure you're drinking plenty of water, because I don't want them getting heat stroke, I don't want them getting sick. And you don't realise it when you're working away, how much you sweat as well. So if you've got sun cream on, you tend to sweat your sun cream off, don't you? So I've been doing my best to look after them, but it's wow. I'm like I couldn't go out and do stuff outside. Like I couldn't go out and work in this for any length of time and be okay. I'd be knackered within 10 minutes. So yeah, I'm actually not enjoying the weather because it's at that point where it's just too hot. It's too warm. I don't want to do it anymore. I want it to go away and leave me alone. But this week we're back to, we've cooled down a bit. We had a horrendous thunderstorm the other night and it was as if someone had just poured a bucket of water down. Our sunroom roof started leaking again. We thought we'd fix that. Clearly we haven't. Found that out the hard way. Got up in the morning and there was basically a swimming pool where our sunroom used to be. So yeah, I'm eternally grateful for that because it was just getting to the point where it was stifling and people were really struggling to sleep at night, because in the UK we do not have air conditioning in our houses. It is not a standard feature because normally we don't have the temperatures that require air conditioning. You know, for people that are used to dealing with maybe late 20s, early 30s in terms of heat, that's all very fair and well if you've got air conditioning, but we don't. But we're very lucky because I live in a drafty farmhouse. And we've got big thick stone walls and stone floors. So it's not been too bad for us really. I think I want to take a little bit of indigo along this, maybe just a tickle. So yeah, the weather's been a bit of a problem. I think things are being a bit sensible, but I was saying to Mr. Jem, I said, you do realise now that that's us, we've had our summer. We're probably not going to get much more good weather now. There's probably going to be a lot of rain involved now. And we're not complaining because the ground needs it, but ideally, we would like to have another 2 or 3 weeks of decent weather would be lovely. But yeah, so I sympathise with any of you that are struggling with the temperatures and the weather just now, whether it's too wet or too warm. You're not alone. And so you know it's bad when it affects Scotland because we don't normally have, or we haven't, and historically we haven't had to deal with a lot of that. It's usually more snow. And the colder temperatures tend to be more problematic for us. Maybe down that side. Maybe that's catching a little bit of light on that side, you know, just through all the cracks and crevices. I made someone laugh by saying crevice the other day. I can't remember who that was. Oh, it was Ashley. Ashley thought because I was talking about the crevice, she thought that was funny. Got a bit more work to do with this one. This one's got a lot of branches, so I'm going to start with the olive yellowish. So you can see what's happening now as I'm doing this. The uncoloured areas of the mountain are really popping out in between all these gaps, which I find it just makes it so much easier to figure out what colours you want to go where when that happens. So that makes me a little bit happier. My nougat on the bottom here. So I was talking last time about getting ready for harvest. We have one cow left to calve, and she is possibly the most bad-tempered animal that we own. She's grumpy on a good day, and then when she has a calf, she turns into a psychopath. She's very hormonal, she's very protective, and it had to be her that was the last one to have her calf. Now, she is definitely in calf. We were kind of thinking, we're having a look at her tummy and one thing and another, and we were like, oh, she can't be that far away. And that was about 2 weeks ago, and there's still no signs of her giving this calf up. So I don't know what's happened, or whether she's just holding on to be spiteful, which I wouldn't put past her, by the way. But do you know that way? It's like every day I'm going out and having a wee chat to her at a safe distance. I'm like, come on now. Her name's Jill, as in Jack and Jill. And I keep saying, come on, Jill. Look, I know you're grumpy, but you'll be less grumpy if you spit your baby out. Like, it would be better for everyone if you just did it. And she just looks at me. She's like, just go away. That's it. It's slightly frustrating just because she's the only one left. But the last cow before her calved like 2 weeks ago. So, she's spinning it out. But we'd really like to get that sorted because we are keeping an eye on her just in case something's going to go wrong or there is something wrong. But she seems fine. I mean, she's eating and drinking as normal and she's plodding about and grazing and, doing cow things. So not overly concerned. We just want her to hurry up. Just hurry up, Jill. Because it's like a mental checklist. You tick things off and it's like, right, the cows have finished calving, now we can get ready for harvest. But we are getting ready for harvest anyway. It's nearly time. Again, I'll squidge in some indigo in here. I don't even know what's going on up in here. So my social life's starting to perk up a little bit now as well, even though I'm not that sociable a person. I'd had my second vaccine last weekend, which I'm really thankful for, and it just makes me a little bit more comfortable, going out in public and, doing that normal person thing. So I'm really, really happy about that. No side effects. I was okay with the first one as well. It was the Pfizer vaccine that I've had both times. And after the first one, I didn't have any outward symptoms, but for the first week after I had it, I could have slept for Scotland. And I am not a big sleeper. I'm like a 5 hour a night sleeper. And I've had historic problems with insomnia. So I'm generally not very good at sleeping. And for that week after I got my injection, I could have just slept forever. It was great. I loved it. It did make me a little bit tired, but the sleeping was amazing, and I felt so fresh when I did finally get up in the morning. It was so nice. So that had like a good side effect of it, but this time I've had absolutely nothing. My arm felt a little bit heavy the day after I had the injection. But apart from that, I've had zero side effects whatsoever, which is great. So happy camper now, because my thing with COVID is, even if you're vaccinated, you can still pass it about, even though you don't have any symptoms. You could be a carrier. You're more likely to be carrying it than if you've had two, because your chances of contracting it obviously are less once you've had 2 vaccines. Now, it's not to say that won't happen, because it does happen, but it's just, the odds are better after you've had 2. So I feel a bit more comfortable going out in public. I'm still very, very careful though. And in Scotland, although we're getting to the point now where most of the rules have been relaxed, but in the odd time that I go out, I have noticed that people are very much still social distancing. If you pass someone on the pavement, the other person or they will like visibly move apart just in case. So we're very much into that. But our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has told us that the wearing of face masks especially is still going to be in play for a good long time after the restrictions have actually been lifted. And the people that I've spoken to about it have all said the same thing, that they're actually happy to do that voluntarily just to try and keep everyone safe, which is really nice actually. It's really nice. So I'm glad that there's, you know, we're all in the sort of same school of thought, and it's just because we don't want to go backwards again. But I say, maybe I'm, you know, maybe I'm on the wrong side of erring on caution. Maybe I'm too cautious, but I would rather be that way than the opposite. So, but I'd say just a bit more comfortable going out in public now that I've had 2 injections. So, our friends that used to be our neighbours, I'm sure I've told you about them before. I used to walk their dogs for them. They had a wire-haired dachshund and a collie. We're meeting up with them. They've moved away now, but they're coming to visit. So we're going out on Saturday night. We're going to go to the pub, which I haven't done since I don't know when. I've been out for a meal a couple of times, but I actually haven't just been to the pub. And I'm sure most of you know that going to the pub is a preferred British pastime, especially Scottish pastime. So I'll be looking forward to that. That'll be good fun. It'll be nice to see them as well, because it's been quite a while since we've seen them again. Same thing. And my friend has had COVID twice. She's very young though. She's only 20. So the first time she had it, she had absolutely no taste and no smell, and apart from that she was absolutely okay. And the second time she didn't even know she had it, but she works with children. She's a nursery teacher, you know, like a what else would you call it? A kindergarten, not even kindergarten, like pre-kindergarten. So she works with the little toty ones. So she doesn't know whether she's picked it up from one of the kids. So she's had to self-isolate twice and she's sick of it. But we now have drop-ins, so she has gone for her vaccine. She's managed to get a drop-in appointment. You know, just go in and wait in the queue kind of thing. So hopefully, but she had to wait because she was going to go and do it, and then she realised that she'd had it again. So apparently you have to wait 28 days. So that's what she's done. So now I think she's had her first vaccination, but she says she's sick of it. She's like, I don't want it again. I'm like, well, that's good. I'm glad you don't want it again, because we don't want you to get it again either. So that's quite funny. So anyway, needless to say, she's been taken, well, she has to for work anyway, because although the schools are off, she still takes care of the little ones during the summer. So she's been having to do lateral flow tests anyway, so like, could this get any worse? Okay, so with this last tree here, if you remember, we're looking at our shadow here. And as this shadow casts down the way, it's going to come to a narrower and narrower point. And I've stopped it just before the edge of this waterfall, and I've done that deliberately, and it's just for aesthetics. But because of that, it is going to catch the corner of this tree here. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking my darkest leaf colour, which is the Juniper Green, and we're going to make just the very, very edge of that the darkest green. But in order to get the same sort of colour that we've got out here, we still need to layer the pencils up. So I'm just going to go in with the permanent green olive, and I can still see my graphite line, so I'm just going to pop that in there. And maybe this one here, and into that one. And that's probably going to be about it, if I'm truthful. I've got my Juniper now, that's my darkest colour. And we're really going to, lots of layers down here, really darken this down. Now, again, we don't want to press hard, you want to keep going back over it, but don't press hard. Okay, so no highlight, no nothing, just dark, dark, dark. So if you look at that compared to that, now you can see there's a difference there. And in addition to that, I'm going to take my indigo pencil, and this is why we didn't want to press hard. And I'm just going to deepen that down even more, just in places, again, not really any scientific reason, but just picking and choosing a little bit. And it's just to accentuate the fact that yes, this is definitely in shadow. Okay, so I think I've got all the tree trunks now, so I'm going to move on to my leaves. So we'll get a little layer of earth green over everything here. Just go for it. Really light hand. Pick out those broccoli trees. There's a sneaky one away in at the back there. Right, I'm going to have to do something with that. I'm just looking at the little the little lines on each of these little fronds, and there's some that I've got 3 and they look like smiley faces with their eyes shut, you know, like a kind of serene emoji type look on them. And now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. There's quite a few here. See, it looks like just little that's funny. Right, I don't really know what's going on here. That's definitely a bit of tree in there. There's a branch there as well that I've missed. Goodness me, that's because I'm too busy talking. Shut up, Jem. I'm going to make that one. I think that is one. So in with our mid-tone pencil now, which is the permanent green olive. And I'm just going to work my way around here very methodically. And again, this one here, I don't think there's going to be any light hitting that one, so I'm going to bring the permanent green olive all the way up. And probably not on that one either. And these little sneaky ones in at the back here, I'm just going to jump straight in with the juniper because clearly they are good, like, they'll be back there. No point in worrying about that if it's all the way in there. Back to my permanent olive green. Again, these ones in the foreground here, they're not going to have much light hitting them, so if you want to colour them all in the same colour, that's absolutely fine. This little guy down here as well. And again, that one in there, I feel as if he's tucked way in behind, so just while I'm there and I'm looking at it, I'm going to pop him in there, the darkest colour. Wondering if maybe we can zoom in a wee bit more now here. The problem is that if I zoom in too much, the autofocus goes a bit crazy. Do you see what I mean about the little faces? Please tell me that you can see that. That's two happy faces with their eyes shut. It's not just me. Tell me it's not just me. I'm really enjoying this book. I'm really enjoying myself in this book. It's lovely. And maybe this one will be darker as well. I feel like I've got a bit more precision there. The sections like this, it's just about patience. You've just got to be methodical, work your way around, everything will be okay. Again, that one in there, I'm going to go straight in with the juniper because I'm absolutely convinced that that's in behind. Just colour the whole thing in, and the same with the one next to it as well. There we go. Now I think as well I'm going to stick a little sliver of indigo because although this trunk isn't in the shadow, you know, where I've drawn it out, because this is in shadow, it will then cast a shadow down this side of this tree trunk. So I think we'll just darken this down with the indigo. Right, so finally, just to get this section of trees finished off, we'll go back in with the juniper and put in our shadow side. So this one here is going to be mostly in shadow. Another really nice shade to use as a shadow colour for this is like a dark bluish green, like a turquoisey green. If you want to go for, you know, if you're in that more sort of illustrative type feeling, it's a really nice complementary way to put shadows in on your leaves. Like, I'll see if I can find one in here just while I'm talking about it. Yeah, like, see like the deep cobalt green, like that sort of colour. That's a really good shadow colour to use on when you're doing trees as in clumps of trees like this. Maybe not for individual leaves, but it's a nice colour to use too. My little smiley face guys here. So these ones in here, as we're coming in more towards this shadow area, I'm getting much more liberal with this darkest green. Kind of heading into shadowy territory, you know. I'll just cover up most of them with that. Okay, there we go. Right, so rather than repeat myself and head over to this other set of trees, I will do those in my spare time. But I want to address this back part here, you know, the mountain. So if you remember last time, I talked about using this sort of colour combination here, down in here, and I feel it's going to be darker than that. I feel it's going to be more like this. If we go back to our mountain coloured pencils, I'm going to primarily stick with the sanguine and the burnt sienna. I maybe even just use the burnt sienna itself. So this section here and probably somewhere in behind that tree is going to be very similar to what's going on here. But I'm thinking more about these parts in here, like tucked in behind here. So I'm going to stick a layer of the burnt sienna down first in various places and just see what that's going to look like. And again, this is one of the advantages of doing this, you know, just putting that light layer down the first time, because if it's not going to be right, it's easier for us to adjust it. There's another bit of greenery in here as well. This is what happens. Oh, goodness me. It's emanating from that sneaky branch as well. That's probably why I missed it. Oh my. Right, let's get that really dark in there. Okay, good. Right, back to my burnt sienna. Back to what I was doing. Bring this right down to the water's edge here. That's us meeting up. Well, let's match up the shadow part first, because that's the easy bit. So that's going to involve some of our dark indigo here. And I'm just going to build up a bit of the burnt sienna and the sanguine here. Again, I'm just alternating a layer of the burnt sienna and then the indigo, and I'm just going back and forth between the two. I'm going to stick in a little bit more of the indigo in these parts here. I just feel as if that's going to be really dark in there. And I kind of almost want the trees to sort of melt into this background a little bit. Okay, I think I'm going to go another layer of burnt sienna in most of these areas. And maybe just go lightly with the indigo. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Especially down in this bottom part here. Not so much up there maybe, but down here, definitely that's going to be darker, so let's just do it. And again, just alternating between the two, back and forth, back and forth. And it's that layering that gives you the difference between the trees and the background, because obviously we're using indigo with both. And we do want a little bit, you know, we want to be able to see the difference a little bit, but again, you know, you're talking about the darkest sort of recesses of the picture, so it's not really a huge deal. I do, however, feel that some parts, like in these sort of upper branches, I think we maybe need to go for more of these colours. But down in here, I'll maybe even make this the sort of cut-off point, you know, draw an imaginary line across here. I'll do these bottom sections anyway. I suppose if we keep it quite neutral like this, then people can decide that maybe that's more trees that they can see in behind, you know, more tree trunks. Give the viewer the option, maybe. I've just noticed here this has made this tree trunk stick out. See, it looks really pale there. Yeah, I think by using similar colours, we've maybe done ourselves a favour here so that everything doesn't stand out quite as much. But from the artist's point of view, you can understand as well why they've done this, because that is a very finicky area to try and put planes of a mountain in, or show that there's maybe like a cliff face or something there when you've got all these trees in front. That's very difficult. So I totally get why they've done what they've done, but just as from the point of view of colouring it, it makes things a wee bit more difficult. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be really difficult. Maybe ease up with the indigo on this outside edge here. Again, further away from the light source, so that way. Okay, so in here, I mean, there's really not much. There's really not much you can do other than sort of pick out certain parts. So this is the sanguine. And I'm kind of going to go along this top edge here and just maybe pop in a little bit and, you know, press heavily and then lighten up my pressure just in certain spots. There's nothing really scientific about this, guys, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of picking out random, because again, you don't know how the planes of this mountain's going to go, say whether there's like a cliff edge there, or your guess is as good as mine. So let's go in with the burnt sienna now, and we'll maybe just try and tidy this up a little bit and join things up a wee bit maybe. We've got these sections in here. And try and blend them in with those little sections of the sanguine that I was just talking about. I would say that's a fairly decent job. Okay, let's take a wee zoom out now. Yeah, that's looking fairly good actually now that we've pulled back a little bit. Okay, excellent. I'm really happy with that so far. That took a lot longer than I thought it would, but that's okay. That's absolutely okay. So I'll do my homework for next time. This section of mountain in here, I'm pretty much going to do the same as this side. So there's going to be nothing new there, and I will get this row of trees done. And again, the same thing with this in-betweeny background part. I'll have that all finished. When we come back next time, we'll tackle this grass area, our tent, and our little dear friend. Our dear friend. Alright, I hope this has been enjoyable for you guys. I've had a great time, and thanks for coming and hanging out with me. The next part of this, as I said before, I'm going to try and keep these a bit closer together than I have done previously with the colouring chat, so that if you're following along, you're not having to wait ages. It's probably going to be about a week or so, and the next one of these will be up. So thank you very much for watching, and all that it means to say is please stay safe and take care of each other, and I will see you back in the cave really soon for another video. So have a good day, everyone. Bye bye for now.